have the log of the top number, and you'll subtract the log of the bottom number. And just like the last one we looked at, this is also a reversible process. So if we had, let's say, the log of 8 minus the log of 4, we would take that first number, which is 8, and we'd put that on top of our fraction. And then we would take that second number, 4, put that on the bottom. And then we would just simplify. What's 8 divided by 4? Yeah, it's 2. So that would become the log of 2. So if you are subtracting, that means you'll divide the values. That's all the quotient property tells us. Now the power property, we actually just looked at this one. This is just our simple movement of taking the exponent and putting that in front, multiplying it to the log. Or going the other way, taking the number in front and bringing that back up, turning it into an exponent. So as long as you remember the movement for this one, you should be totally fine. I think this is probably the easiest one to work with. And the final one, the change of base property, this goes all the way back to Thursday. It's the first one we ever looked at. When you were solving in the calculator, taking the log of the value and dividing by the log of the base, that's exactly what this is saying. So whatever the value is, we'll take the log of that first, and then we will divide by the log of the base. So remember the alliteration, that'll help you remember. Base goes on the bottom. B and B, base goes on the bottom. Say it a couple times, it'll stick with you. So condensing logs is not going to make use of all of these properties. I kind of drew a bracket here to draw your attention to the most important ones. We're going to hit the product, quotient, and power properties, these three, most often. So make sure that those are the ones you pay attention to. The other ones are kind of trivia, but it's good to have a note so that you can look back. You see the bracket I drew around those three? Power, quotient, and, product, quotient, and power. Okay, so example 1. You probably also notice on your notes that I wrote in the order of operations, and there's a reason why. I also have it posted up here for you to refer back to so you don't have to be constantly flipping back and forth. When we have a complex logarithm like this, with multiple properties coming into play, we can use the order of operations to decide which one changes first. So the very first step, what I'm going to do is decide the points of separation. That is what separates one logarithm from another. And that point of separation is almost always an addition sign or a subtraction sign. Since we're subtracting these two, I'm just going to draw those lines in, separate them out. So we have one logarithm here, and we got one there. Now once we get those lines of separation drawn in, we're going to go down our order of operations to decide which of these comes first. So we are multiplying, and we're subtracting. Which one comes first in the order? Multiplying is right. So this is going to be the first one that we condense. Now, if we are multiplying something to a logarithm, where's that number going?
As an exponent.
Yeah, it goes right up to an exponent, right? Now, the reason we draw the lines in is that helps make it clear where your exponent actually stops. Because we want to bring it to the end of the logarithm, but we don't want to introduce it to this thing. So we end up with log 6 to the second power. That one is condensed. Now we can just drop down the second part. We're subtracting the log of 9. Before we move forward, I want to make sure I simplify. So what is 6 to the second power? 36. That's right, 6 times 6 is 36. And we're still subtracting log 9, that just dropped down again. Now we're on the last one, and this seems like a much simpler example like the ones we just dealt with. If we subtract 2 logs, what do we do to the values? Same.
Divide them.
Yep, you'll divide them. Division leads to subtraction. Subtraction leads to division. That's the relationship. So we're going to have log. That first number is going to go on top, 36. And we're going to divide by the last number, that is 9. And as I just heard said behind me, 36 divided by 9 is 4. So that one has been fully condensed. Now you tell me, what looks better, that or that? That's a single logarithm. That would be much easier to evaluate. So the reason we condense is it compiles it into a single expression. You can just run that straight through the calculator. You don't have to bother trying to format that huge mess. That's the idea anyway. So we're going to go on to this one. I'm going to give you a little bit to try this out. I suspect a couple people are going to flail with it, but that's totally expected. It's the first example we're doing. So remember step 1, find the points of separation, and then go down the order of operations to decide which property you're using. All the properties are right here, so you can just check back and see, match them up.
I've seen her.
And we are adding 2 times log 4 of b. Now at this point, you're going to see the wisdom of my weird methods. Our step 1 was to find the points of separation, right? Does anybody remember where those are?
The plus sign.
Yep, plus sign. So we need to put our 2 lines right around that. The reason we do that is because it helps separate the 2 logs from each other so that we can deal with them separately. The next thing we need to do, step 2, is go down the order of operations, see what comes first. So we're multiplying, adding, multiplying. Which one comes first? Multiplying goes first. So if we are multiplying a number to a log, where does that 4 go?
To the back.
Yeah, it goes to the back. And this is where the lines come in handy. Because when we go to the back, we can see it's going to become an exponent for a. So make sure that's where your exponent goes. It does not go to the base. It does not go to the 2. It goes to the value, which in this case was a. So we've got log base 4, and we could write that as a to the 4th power. Another way to remember that, if you don't like drawing those lines in or you find it makes things messy, the bases of your logarithms are never going to change. As you transform this, it's only really these values that are moving. So the base will always be 4 no matter what. Now we can go on to the second one, and this is going to be changed the exact same way. We're multiplying a number, just like we just said. That goes to the back. So we've got log base 4, and b is going to get a power of 2. So if we are adding 2 logarithms like we are now, that's the last operation, what do we do to these 2 values? What do you think? Take a look at our properties. Yeah, if we're adding 2 logs, we need to multiply the values. So a to the 4th times b squared. Now as we try to write that, a and b are different variables. So can we add the exponents together?
No.
Nope, because they're different, they're going to stay separate. So a to the 4th b squared, that's it. That one has been totally simplified, that's a single logarithm. So once you get those lines drawn in, that's step 1. Step 2 is identify the operations and find the one that goes first using the order of operations. And then you can start transforming using the properties. That's all matching up right back here. So if you can tell at a glance that you are adding, come back and look for the property that deals with adding and see what that turns into. That's going to help you out. You got to use your resources though. So next one is very similar. Get your step 1 done first.
Ms. Foxx, I don't know who went to the bathroom yet, but I don't think that thing's going.
I think they're going to forget to take theirs off.
Yeah.
No. The last person.
No,
was
we're waiting on Damien.
Damien.
He didn't even put his name in.
Yeah, you did.
Did he?
I let him go when you weren't on.
Oh, okay. I'll take his name. Yeah, so we're doing order of operations first to decide which one we start with. So we got multiplication, subtraction, multiplication. So in order of operations, what comes first? Yeah, so we actually want to change these ones before we ask you. Yeah. It'll actually multiply. How it's going to go.
I like it.
Yeah. But if you raise a power to a power, what does that do? So if you multiply it, power to a power, you multiply the exponents. So you'll do 3 times. You're on the right track here. But when you do power to a power, you do the add and add. So if you multiply a variable and a variable, then you add. But power to a power, you got multiple. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, it's not good. So you got the right values for these 2, but we're subtracting. So if we subtract, then you got them. Yes.
I'll look at pictures. Not one picture of me.
All right. I'll take these last couple questions, then we'll check this out.
Is this gonna be for homework or is this just?
This is just us. We will at homework tomorrow. We're not doing it on-
Why are they talking about
Using subtraction, you want to use that. All right, so let's check it out. I've got the same question. Take a look together. First thing we want to do is get our points of separation drawn in. So again, where do we draw those? Does anyone remember?
What's that word?
Yep. Right around the sides. We want to do one line on both sides. Right there. So doing that helps separate the two logarithms and keep clear where the division is. Now, once we've done that, step 2 is go down order of operations. So checking, we are multiplying, subtracting, multiplying. Which comes first? Multiply. So we are going to use this one first. We want to condense that. If we're multiplying a number, we've talked about this, it just comes right back up on top and becomes an exponent, right? So we've got log base 4 of u to the 7th power. And this is the exact same thing. We're multiplying a number, so we're going to condense that too. We're going to bring that number up as an exponent. Now maybe you got stuck here because we already had an exponent. So when we bring a power to a power, what do we do to those? You multiply them. Power to a power means multiply. So 3 times 2 will give you 6. So we got log base 4 of v to the 6th. And that subtraction sign can just come straight down. So now that we've condensed those two separately, the only operation left to do is subtract. When we subtract 2 logs, what do we do to our values?
Divide.
You divide them. That's the quotient property. So that first value, u to the 7th, that's going to go on top. In fact, I should make sure I get my log in front, just that there's no confusion. First value of u to the 7th goes on top. That last value, v to the 6th, that's going to go on the bottom.
Oh,
Now, once again, these are different variables. So if they're different, can we subtract the exponents here? No, it's going to stay just like that. They stay separate. So that one is totally condensed. And maybe that doesn't look super nice, but I still think it looks better than that.
I don't think so.
So next one, this one is maybe a little bit easier than the one we just did. So go ahead and follow your step-by-step process and make sure you use your principles. They're all right up here. You don't have to have these committed to memory. That's what they're here for.
Two times the fraction.
Yeah, did you get the last one? No. Dude, take down your properties, that's why. It's all on the left side. If you don't write them down, how are you gonna know?
it's just like
You don't, so they're not gonna. God. We've just got plus and minus, those are the only two operations. So going down order of operations. Because multiplying came before and yeah, it's not like that.
You know what? I need to
Yeah,
go.
so it's all just order of operations.
I want to get some.
These two ones are being
that, Robert.
so we're gonna combine
No.
those two. But if we're adding, we don't add the values. If we add 2 logs, what do we do with the values?
How the hell was that?
All stay the same, then I'm moving when I move.
So check out those 3 in the
I'm proud of you, Eric.
Find the one that talks about adding 2 logs.
Oh, God.
I got
Yeah,
all
and then
three.
you multiply them.
I beat him with every single thing. What is that? No.
So which one comes first?
Actually, just
So we're gonna deal with these 2
advanced,
first.
so this is gonna
Now, if we add 2 logs, what do we do to this first one?
You can go further than you think.
They have the same thing. So
So
we're not
you
gonna
go
add
any
the values.
further?
Check out the properties. Which one of those 3 talks about adding? So what do we do with the values then? What do we have? What's happening in columns?
Or just the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like bar
so there's basically two problems that we have together.
And then you're subtracting this. So if you subtract a log, you can go back to this log. When you subtract, what do you do to the log?
Look at that. That's like, yeah, those lines are not good. Don't move your face now. Oh,
What the hell?
my bad. That's
Touch my
supposed to
ass.
hit your hand. Chill out.
We're gonna allow each other, so I'm assuming that means we're ready. Are we ready or do we need a bit more time?
It's on the bar, dude.
Alright, that was a very good vote of confidence you just gave me. Let's check it out. So we got log base 2 of 15. We are adding log base 2 of 4. And we are subtracting log base 2 of 6. Alright, so we're gonna check out the operations first. We are adding these two and we are subtracting these two. So according to our order of operations, what comes first, adding or subtracting? Yep, adding does. So we're gonna deal with these two. Now that's actually a little bit of trivia you might have forgotten about order of operations. Even though it looks like multiplying and dividing are like in order, multiplying first, those two are on the same level. Multiply and dividing, that goes left to right. It's the exact same thing with adding and subtracting. If that's all you have left, you'll do adding and subtracting left to right. So we would have had to start here anyway. Just a little bit of a refresher for you. So if we add two logs, what happens to the values?
You multiply.
You multiply them, exactly. So we got log base 2, 15 times 4, that's 16. Yep. So once we got that, this log here can just drop straight down. Now we're subtracting log base 2 of 6. And if we subtract two logs, what happens to the values then? You divide them. Perfect, that's the quotient property for you. So that first value of 60, we're going to put that on top. And we're going to divide by that last value of 6. So 60 divided by 6 was what? 10. Perfect. We got log base 2 of 10. Now that has been condensed into a single thing. We're not going to bother solving that. We're just trying to condense right now to practice using the properties. So once you get to that point, you can call it done. Pat yourself on the back if you got it. Now our next one. This one is going to help to have your points of separation. I skipped that step this time. It's going to be good to do it. Do your points of separation. I'm telling you, that's going to help keep everything straight. When you get your lines drawn in, you just go straight down the line, order of operations.
Foxx, you're trying to kill us, man.
Not even.
Yes.
If you like this one, wait for the next one. Oh, please.
We don't like it.
Again, why do you say so? Yeah, there's such a thing. There is such a thing as a good struggle.
No, there is not.
How are you ever going to grow if you don't challenge yourself?
Okay, but this is like beyond challenging. The last one was challenging. This is way far from this.
And then watch it be
Okay,
easier
but
to
wait,
say.
listen. Okay, but listen. So, there's two motions, right? So how do you know it's okay?
We just went down order of
When you see how like this, so what if there was like this with minus sign first and now it's off?
Then we would just go
Oh,
left
so
to
you
right.
put it to two.
Yeah, we just
Put it to two. Okay, that would be a lot easier.
What do you say?
What is this problem? Hey.
What is the problem? What's our first step? Points of separation.
I don't know.
Yes.
Because they open the door. It's open.
So once we separate, the second step is go order of
Is it?
operations. So we're adding things first. So deal with this one.
Mr. Fox. I did it.
No way, you're good as
I
you were.
did it.
Okay.
Can I
You
put it on
almost
the wall?
didn't. You thought you were leaving.
Can I pin it on the wall?
Go for it.
Okay, dude.
I love that it was worth the trip for either of you.
Do you have tape?
No, she thinks I'm Philosopher SpongeBob, I guess. No, I don't have tape.
Oh,
Just gonna use the stapler.
Tell me that's not him. I'm just gonna put it on your desk.
Looks just like him.
That's the biggest realization I've ever done.
So you did a fraction exponent.
Oh,
okay. Then you will have to go next. Yeah.
I said I'll follow.
So it's 28 what?
You are dumb.
There's a pizza this Friday? Where? I think that
So, I'm not gonna leave it out too much longer. Let's go ahead and try this.
yes.
He has a horse?
Okay, so let's bring it back up to the front and check out this problem. I saw quite a few people get stuck on it, so I think we all need to check it out and see how it's done. So our step one, remember, we always look for points of separation first. So the first thing we're doing is every single plus sign, I'm going to put a line on each side. And doing that just helps us separate the logarithms. We separate them out. So we've got 1, 2, 3 logs all together. Now once we do that, we want to go down the order of our order of operations here and decide which comes first. So we're adding, multiplying. What comes first? Multiplying, right? M comes before A, so we got to deal with this side before we do anything. So that number that's being multiplied to the front, we just practiced this, so hopefully we remember. That number in front comes up as an exponent. Yeah.
How do you do 1/2?
Yes, it's going to look just like this. Those are good questions. So we've got log base 3 of 49, and we raise it to a power of 1/2. How do we put a fraction exponent in the calculator? Great question. You're going to need parentheses. You always put parentheses around your fractions. So you've got 49 with the arrow, and then you'll put in parentheses 1 divided by 2. Because any fraction is division, and if you don't put the parentheses in, what your calculator is going to try to do is raise 49 to the first power, and then divide the result by 2. Because it also does order of operations. So parentheses help. Make sure you get them. You always need that if you have a fraction. Now somebody who does that, tell me, what does that solve to?
7.
Yep, it solves to 7. So we got log base 3 of 7. That is the simplified form there. Now we can move on and just bring these two straight down. We got log base 3 of 4. We're adding log base 3 of y. And we're adding that one. So all we have left is addition. That means we can just go left to right. So if we add these two logs right here, we multiply the values 4 times y, and that gives us 4y. This one, again, just comes straight down. We got log base 3 of 7. And as we just said, when we add, we multiply the values. What's 4 times 7?
That's 28.
That's 28, that's right. So we got log base 3 of 28y. That is totally condensed. There's nothing more we can do to that. So we can leave it in that final form.
You can't drop 3 down?
The 3 is the base, so it's just going to stay there. So this next one,